So we have elements of culture. This is a pretty large section, as you guys saw. And we used to teach 8 elements of culture. It's what the old book used to break it down in. This book does not do it the same way. So once we get through this, then we'll look at the parts more specifically, but we just got to get through the information first. So first off, what is culture? Culture is a set of beliefs, values, and practices that a group of people has in common. What does values? What's values? What's values? What's that mean?
Money.
That would be like a valuable. But what is a person's values?
Like something that's special to you.
Right. So it would be something like our belief system, or what we think is right or wrong, good and evil, our values, our beliefs. Everything in our day-to-day life is part of our culture. Our clothes, music, food, all make up our culture. So this is your first spot where you're going to fill in the blanks. This is the first spot where you're going to fill in the blanks of the notes I gave you. This is your first spot where you're going to fill in the blanks of the notes that I gave you. Right here. Clothes, music, food. Everything in our day-to-day life is part of our culture.
Where did you get a laser pointer?
I've had it. So, everything in our day-to-day life is part of our culture. Our clothes, our music, and our food. So if you look around the room at all of our culture posters that we have up, you can see that we have an example of the clothing on each one of those posters. How people dress in all the different spots. And you can see that it's different in each spot. All the posters have a representation of a food that is eaten. For the most part, not all of them, but almost all of them have some sort of food that they eat in the different areas. Now, music is hard to represent, right, in each one of the cultures on a poster, but it's going to be different everywhere, right? All cultures share certain features, okay? So there are certain parts of a culture that are the same in every culture. Yes, yes. But not all cultures practice the features the same way. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
So, we could talk about food as being part of culture. And we could compare food very easily, right? I don't know that barbecue originated in America. I think it did on the cattle trails.
I love that.
Okay? I love barbecue is one of my
It's
favorites.
so good, mister.
So good.
I love
agree.
brisket and ribs.
Yes.
Oh.
I prefer the fatty side of the brisket.
Yeah,
Right?
you get all that meat.
Yep. So I would say, like, for a food, if you ask me what is an original American meal, I would say barbecue, right? If I asked what would be a traditional Hispanic meal from Mexico, tamales, okay? I didn't grow up eating tamales. I did not. All right? One of the things that I enjoy is going around the lunchroom on fish stick day.
I was actually kind of good.
Cracks me up, right? I grew up eating fish sticks. Fish sticks and macaroni and cheese. That was the meal. Okay?
Chicken nuggets and mac and
Well, I mean,
cheese.
maybe the
With mashed
combo.
potatoes and great mashed potato.
But that was a common meal for us as a family. Is that a common meal in your house? Fish
Yeah.
sticks?
No.
No. What about meatloaf?
No.
Yes. Not really, actually.
Yes?
With extra ketchup.
With extra ketchup.
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 Stop.
Okay, so Italian food,
Italian.
right? You guys, what was the meal yesterday? Chicken what?
Chicken parmesan.
Chicken parmesan. Now that was not, if you go to an actual Italian restaurant and order chicken parmesan, it's excellent. It's one of my favorite Italian meals.
That looks
Okay.
nasty. I'm not eating that.
That was.
Yes, it
That's
is.
that's not how it's served in an
It
Italian
had
restaurant.
so much sauce.
So I did not go with chicken. The pasta was like very watery, not very flavored.
They
The
would be
sauce is-
Gordon Ramsay now.
Okay, but
I didn't know.
the point is that is a traditional Italian meal. Okay, it's a chicken parm. Okay, but how we served it yesterday in the lunchroom is not ideal.
It's the off.
Okay, but the point is what? It's common, right?
Uh-huh.
All cultures have food, but not all cultures do it the same way. Right? And clothing would be the same. Correct? You can look at the posters. Look at China in the back. Right? Look at the traditional clothing there compared to the Mexico poster. Right? And the traditional clothing there. And we can go down here to Brazil and the traditional clothing here. Everybody has clothing, not everybody does it the same way. Right?
Uh-huh.
Okay, so that's what this means. All cultures share certain features, but they don't all do it the same way. Culture traits. A culture trait is an activity or behavior in which people often take part. Culture trait is an activity or behavior in which people often take part. Sometimes a culture trait is shared by people all around the world. We have a perfect example of it right now. What's going on right now?
The World Cup.
The World Cup. World Cup. What a terrible song. Atrocious.
Atrocious.
And you guys walk around singing that stupid thing all day. World Cup. Oh.
They got in my head and now I even watch soccer.
So soccer is a perfect example of a culture trait that is shared by people all around the world.
Yeah, look at my soccer team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the Cardinals. Whose screen are you looking at?
Culture traits change from place to place. An example of that, an example of how culture traits change from place to place is how people eat their food. Some examples would be some cultures, they eat with chopsticks, right? Some places eat with forks and spoons. Some places use a bread or tortilla,
Oh yeah, I can
and
see
some
that.
places just use their fingers, right?
For meat and stuff, yeah.
Right. So all over, even using forks and spoons could be different. I remember when I was in high school, I took a visit to Kansas State to go visit the college and get information. My buddy and I, we went to go eat at an Italian restaurant. Okay. We were uncultured swine from Southwest Kansas. Okay. We go to this Italian restaurant and they serve us our pasta or whatever we ordered. And with it was this giant spoon. Okay? Not the spoon ain't gonna fit in your mouth. It was a huge spoon. Now some of y'all might fit, some of y'all might fit. Not
Is it like a soup spoon?
right? It was huge. It was a huge spoon. And we're sitting there looking at each other like, what am I supposed to do with this spoon? Why did they serve this giant spoon? So So we're looking around at everybody else. You scoop the pasta with the spoon, and you spin the pasta on the spoon, and it makes it all nice and neat on your fork to eat it. I had no idea, right? And I've used forks and spoons my entire life. But different cultures do it differently. I had no idea. I've eaten spaghetti hundreds of times before that. But that's how they do it. And in Italy, I guess, have to twirl their spaghetti onto their spoon. I didn't know. Had no idea. But that's a difference, right? Anybody here use chopsticks? Anybody know how to do it?
Yeah, I know how.
You know how?
Yeah, but I don't. My. You know how.
Girls.
You know how Ellen Jair. They're big brothers in the college, and they're two Japanese. What's it called? Came, and then they wanted to use chopsticks. Yeah, to eat chopsticks.
Yeah.
There you go.
Went to a famous barbecue place in Kansas City once, right? And you get ribs. Ribs are the best. Okay, so you get ribs, you pick them up, and you just eat them, right? You just eat them. And I'm in there, and I saw this guy who was eating the ribs with a fork and a knife,
I cannot.
and I'm like, bro, what are you doing?
I did that before.
What are you doing?
I did that.
That's not authentic way.
That's not. But and he was
Huh?
just of a different ethnicity, right? He just never experienced. He didn't know, right? He probably thought he was probably doing it the proper way, right? He didn't know. The bread, the example out of the book was from Ethiopia, how they used flatbread to scoop the food, right? When I was growing up, if we had a big meal with meat, potatoes, and all that stuff, we would have a slice of bread with some butter on it. Is that what you guys have with your meal? Is a slice of bread?
Yeah.
I mean,
It depends what it is. If it's menudo, then I have a big piece of bread.
You have a big piece of bread?
But if it's like
stuffed them in noodles.
little sopita,
Yeah.
then you use like tortillas.
You use tortillas, right? The
Little
only
one.
the only time that we ever had that is if we were making tacos. It's the only time. Okay? Cultural differences, right? It's a beautiful thing. I love it. Development of cultures. Culture traits are learned or passed down from one generation to the next. Culture traits are learned or passed down from one generation to the next. Culture traits develop within families as traditions, foods, holiday customs. Laws and moral codes are passed down within societies. Laws and moral codes. Does everybody within a society always agree on laws and moral codes?
No.
No, and it's pretty polarizing right now in America, isn't it? Laws and moral, it is. You have the abortion topic is a hot topic in America right now. The legalization of marijuana is a hot topic in America.
Why?
for like medical purposes, right?
Both, medical purpose, recreational use. Should it be legal? Should it be illegal?
But I think it should be legal for medical purposes, but not.
Should it be criminalized? Should it not be criminalized? Should people be let out of prison for it? Should they, right? Like, all of this stuff are big topics in America. And people can disagree on both sides.
I strongly disagree.
Cultures develop as people learn new culture traits from immigrants who move to a new country. Language, food, and holidays are all things that come when people move to new countries. I can tell you Dodge City has drastically changed in the 42 years that I have lived here, from the number of different immigrants that have come from all over the world to live here.
Also, the bull kind of moved.
The bull did move. Yes, it's gonna move again.
Oh yeah, they're like recreate, like doing it more modern.
They're redoing all of downtown. Yes.
That's so stupid. Why?
It's not
Dodge is
gonna be
Dodge. authentic. You can't change nothing about Dodge. Dodge was
No,
made
it's
the
not
way it
gonna
is.
be.
Too bad they're doing it.
It's not gonna be
It's not gonna be historical like it was before.
So, let's take a look at the first bullet point. Culture traits are learned or passed down. You know, culture traits are learned or passed down from one generation to the next. One of the examples that I like to talk about with this one, I grew up with the boogeyman, right? The boogeyman was gonna get you, right? There you go, right? So that gets passed down from generation to generation. Now, when you guys have kids, what are you gonna tell your kids?
I'm not gonna have kids.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Famous last words. Come see me when you're 40 and you have 10. Okay?
Are you gonna have a girlfriend or not? I'll tell you right now.
But that's a thing that gets passed down, right? From generation to generation. Okay? Just like the boogeyman or the kukui, same thing, but different culturally. Okay? The next bullet point says culture traits develop within families as traditions, foods, and holiday customs. So we just had Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving is another one of those topics, right? Where some people are very against Thanksgiving because of what it represents.
What does it represent?
The Indians coming to. What is it so bad about? They're fighting for making this a land.
But no, they were together and they were eating together.
Okay?
But some are evil.
But then they didn't want them there no more. They fought.
And then the Pilgrims
and the
still the
Pilgrims
land.
stayed there.
What is it so bad?
And
Okay.
they killed them.
Okay, so Christopher Columbus was not a very nice person.
Oh no, he was horrible.
And we celebrate him, and he was not a good
Yeah,
person.
there's Columbus Day.
But you can't judge him based on
If you didn't.
today's standards, which is a thing that a lot of people do, right? Because he didn't live today. He lived back then. So you have to judge him based on what things were like back then.
Back then is back then.
And the things that he did were not good. But we celebrate Thanksgiving because the Native Americans saved the Pilgrims pretty much, right? Like they were going to die that first winter because they weren't prepared. And they were going to starve to death. But that's why we celebrate Thanksgiving.
But on the Pilgrim, like the culture is the Indian.
No, the Pilgrims came from Europe.
Uh,
And the Native Americans saved the Pilgrims because the Pilgrims were going to die because they weren't ready. The Native Americans taught them how to grow corn and how to do all this stuff and how to survive.
Yeah.
And then we
Didn't they have
took over their
babies
land.
together?
So, but traditions on Thanksgiving, okay? We do turkey and ham. That's a tradition that we always do. We get together with family. Some families don't do turkey and ham, right?
They just do have. Maybe they don't eat meat like
Or Christmas traditions. Not everybody celebrates Christmas, right?
Yeah, there's what is it, Hanukkah?
Hanukkah, there's Kwanzaa. Some people don't celebrate anything, right? And that's a big topic on teacher Twitter, right? Is being sensitive to all students in your classroom and all of the individual situations that they have at home, right? So when we look at traditions of a family on a Christmas in particular, the holiday season, it can be sensitive time for some people as well, right? That have lost family members or just have different traumas in their life. But also people celebrate it differently. When do you guys open presents?
I opened one on Christmas Eve, and then I opened the rest on Christmas Eve.
I get them early.
You get them early?
I opened them on the 24th, like later on, so I wake up and I don't like doing none of that stuff in the morning. I just wake up, get ready, and then I used to eat, and then I open my gifts, and then the 25th is just like just a normal day.
Just a normal day you hang out. So you open them on Christmas Eve.
Yeah, and if I have some
In the nighttime?
Yeah? You at nighttime? What about you, Carlos?
and then
Nighttime?
like this, like,
So when I got married, right, and went with my in-laws, and they were like, "Yeah, we're gonna open presents Christmas Eve."
No, you only supposed
I
to
was like,
open
"What?"
one, but okay.
I said, "It's not Christmas. Why you open Christmas presents on Christmas Eve?" They didn't make any sense to me, right? But that was a tradition, right? Culturally, that was different than my tradition. And so they're all right. Let's open presents.
I like it better though, because like we get our gifts before.
It's kind of nice because then on Christmas morning you just get to relax
Yeah.
and go spend it with family or whatever
And
you
like
want
if
to
they're
do.
gonna make food that day, you just go and like.
Well, when I was little, on Christmas Eve, I would get clothes, and then when I wake up, it was the Santa's gift that I got.
Yes, you got Santa's gifts.
Yeah, but because on Christmas Eve was family gift, and then suddenly, like the next day, it was Santa.
I like it. I like it.
You used to do that?
No.
Why? Santa's real.
Next up, development of culture. Other factors such as history and environment. History and environment. So when we talk about history, Spain conquered Central and South America. Have you ever wondered why Spanish is the predominant language from Central and South America? Why isn't it Aztec or Mayan? Well, it's because Spain went in and conquered the land. And how does the environment affect cultures? The example the book gave talked about the Sahara Desert and how you can't grow crops in the desert, so people there herd animals instead of growing crops.
What? I'm ready just to go on the bus and go to sleep. How long does it drive actually? The teams were playing down camp, going against them, or just going against them. Yeah.
Okay, next up you have culture groups. Culture groups are people who share similar culture traits. People who share similar culture traits are members of a culture group.
Traits, age.
Culture groups are based on age, language, religion,
No word on age.
a culture region is an area in which people may have many shared culture traits.
That page was the shortest page we read.
Religious beliefs, language, and lifestyle.
Well, how do you put this down? A culture is often based.
Have you tried the barbecue place in Wichita?
Which one? There's several. I've been to a few of them.
I don't know what's that, but it's like
Been to Pig In, Pig Out.
the-
Been to Clutches.
It's like you have to go in, you have to like go take it, and then you have to do like your own plate. Let's say like if you want kids home and you pay for it like that type of food and you get a little ticket and the cookers give it in your plate and you sit down. But if you want like a adult one, you get two times.
Oh, haven't been that one.
It's, I don't know what's that, but it's
I'm
like
gonna
very
say what
like nice
Angel
inside.
said.
There's like
What did you say?
there's
Oh, what?
the outside is kind of like a garage, like and then like it's like kind of like two
I'm cold.
chairs, and then there's also like a whole other one that you open like kind of like a garage and more chairs. It's like good though.
Sounds
I like
good.
going there.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Where was it?
we will stop right there.
Tom.